You stand in front of the mirror, and you don't quite recognize the man staring back at you. You see fragments. In one shard, you're the provider who has given everything but receives little in return. In another, you're the nice guy, endlessly patient, endlessly ignored. And in others, you see a mixture of roles. You were told to play tough, yet sensitive. Successful yet humble, protective, yet never overbearing. None of these reflections show the complete man you long to see. Instead, it feels as if the mirror itself has shattered under the weight of contradictions, and all you're left with are pieces that don't fit together. This fracture is not an accident. It's the result of decades of expectations piled on top of you. Expectations from women, from society, even from your own family. You were told to be strong, but punished when your strength looked like aggression. You were told to be open, but dismissed when your honesty didn't match what someone wanted to hear. You were told to chase success, but when you achieved it, you realized it didn't heal the loneliness inside. Masculinity today is not a single definition, battlefield between outer demands and inner truth. And in that battlefield, too many men have lost themselves. Psychology tells us that identity is formed not only by what we choose to be, but by how others respond to those choices. A man's identity becomes fragmented when every response is contradictory, punished if too assertive, mocked if too soft, unnoticed if too neutral. The brain interprets this as rejection, and rejection strikes the same centers in the mind as physical pain. No wonder so many men carry invisible wounds, hidden beneath polished suits or forced smiles, but beneath the fragments lies something deeper. Masculinity has never truly been about how much you can lift, how much you can earn, or how stoic you can remain. At its core, masculinity is integrity made visible. It's the alignment between what you feel, what you believe, and how you act. When those three are fractured, you feel powerless. When they are aligned, you become magnetic. Women sense it. Other men sense it. You sense it. The broken mirror is not the end of your story, it is the beginning. Because when something breaks, you're faced with a choice. You can throw it away, or you can rebuild it into something stronger, sharper, and clearer than before. The man you are becoming is not defined by the shards of the past, but by the courage to piece them together into a new reflection. A man's silence has always been celebrated as strength. From a young age, you were taught that keeping quiet meant control. That swallowing your pain meant discipline. That hiding your doubts meant you were tough enough to endure. Yet, the same silence that once served as your armor slowly hardens. Into your prison, you carry words that never reach the surface, emotions that never leave your chest, truths that suffocate inside you. On the outside, people may see calm. On the inside, you know it feels like pressure building behind a dam. And one crack could unleash a flood. What most men don't realize is that the brain interprets unspoken emotion as unfinished business. When you silence yourself, you're nervous. System never resolves the stress. Instead, it cycles endlessly, releasing cortisol, tightening your chest, and convincing you that you are weak for even feeling it. Over years, this silence becomes not only emotional, but physical. Your posture caves. Your eyes avoid, your energy withdraws. To her, it doesn't look like quiet strength anymore, it looks like fear disguised as composure. Women instinctively sense the difference. They know when a man is silent because he is grounded, and when he is silent because he is afraid. The tragedy is that silence steals your presence. A woman does not fall in love with your words alone, but with the resonance of your being. When you swallow your truth, your presence shrinks. Your silence becomes emptiness, not gravity. And emptiness does not attract, it repels. She cannot lean into you if she feels nothing to hold on to. This is why so many women lose interest, not because the man wasn't strong, but because he mistook suppression for strength. But the answer is not to overshare, to pour out every insecurity. Like a confession booth, true strength is measured in selective vulnerability. Vulnerability offered with intention becomes connection. Vulnerability offered with desperation becomes manipulation. When you share your truth from a place of groundedness, you invite her into your world without asking her to save you. That is the difference between a man who commands respect and a man who drains it. Imagine the dam again. If it never opens, it eventually collapses under its own pressure, destroying everything downstream. But if it channels its waters with precision, it generates energy, irrigates fields, sustains life. Your emotions, when mastered, are no different. They are not weaknesses to be hidden. They are raw forces to be directed. The silence that imprisons you today can become the stillness that centers you tomorrow. But only when you learn to speak, not to seek approval, but to reveal truth. Every man knows the ache of walking into a room and feeling unseen. You notice. Her eyes pass over you as if you weren't even there. While they lock onto someone else, the man who seems to draw attention without effort. For you, it is not just about attraction. It is about existence. To not be desired feels like to not exist at all. The human brain is wired for recognition, for social acknowledgement. And when a man does not receive it, the rejection registers as pain. It is not vanity, it is biology. You are not weak for wanting to be desired. You are human. But the battlefield of desire has become invisible, and many men lose the war without ever understanding the rules. The truth is that women do not evaluate only your looks, your money, or your gestures. They perceive your social frequency, the way others respond to you, the unconscious proof of your value. This is why you can be generous, kind, attentive, and still be overlooked. Because kindness without presence feels hollow. Desire is not triggered by how much you give, but by what radiates from you when you give nothing at all. That is the paradox most men never learn. A woman is drawn not to your efforts, but to your essence. When you rely on gestures, flowers, compliments, endless availability, you broadcast a hidden message. I have no magnetism on my own. I need to buy your attention. And she feels it instantly. She may not say it, but her body knows it. Her disinterest is not cruelty, is instinct. Gentleness, when carried as your only currency, becomes weakness. What ignites desire is not that you are gentle, but that you are alive, that your presence vibrates with conviction. A fire without heat cannot warm anyone. You may offer her the ashes of your devotion, but if there is no flame, she will walk away cold. The invisible battle is not fought in words, but in resonance. Neuroscience reveals that women are highly attuned to micro-expressions, posture, and energy shifts. They detect insecurity before you ever open your mouth. This is why a so-called bad boy often attracts more than a considerate man, not because of cruelty, but because his energy projects certainty, even if it is flawed. Certainty communicates safety in her unconscious, and safety is the soil in which desire grows. The path forward is not to abandon your kindness, but to anchor it in vitality. Presence is the flame. When you enter a room, do not think about what you lack. Think about what you carry. Stand with the weight of a man who knows he exists, even if no one affirms it. Desire follows not the man who begs for it, but the man who embodies it. And when you reconnect with your own desire, not the hunger to be chosen, but the raw spark of being alive, women will feel it without a single word spoken. Every man has felt it the moment when a woman challenges him, not with open words, but with subtle shifts, glances, or silence. You think you are having a simple conversation, but suddenly she withdraws, or she questions you in a tone that feels like a trap, or she tests your patience without explanation. To you, it feels manipulative. To her, it feels natural. These tests are not conscious strategies. They are unconscious calibrations of safety and strength. What she is asking without ever saying it is, can you hold your ground without losing yourself? The male mind often interprets these moments as hostility, but in truth, they are checkpoints of coherence. She is searching not for perfection, but for consistency. The brain, particularly the limbic system, looks for signals of stability in a potential partner. If your center wavers under pressure, her instincts conclude you cannot carry the weight of life with her. This is not malice. It is evolutionary psychology. Just as you assess her loyalty through her actions, she measures your integrity through these silent games. When you do not understand this, you react with either anger or submission. You argue back, trying to win the verbal battle, or you fold and give her what she wants to stop the discomfort. Both reveal instability. Anger shows that she can pull you off balance with a single move. Submission shows that you cannot endure discomfort without giving up authority. In both cases, you lose. The test was never about the surface issue, it was about your center. A bridge is trusted, not because it never faces storms, but because it holds steady while storms rage. The same is true for you. If you remain rooted, calm, but immovable, you communicate authority without aggression. Authority is not shouting, not controlling, not threatening. Authority is the silent gravity of a man who knows his values and does not betray them, no matter who is watching. That gravity is what she seeks. It reassures her unconscious mind that if she leans on you, you will not collapse. Learning to say no is the foundation of this power. A no spoken with anger is resistance. A no spoken with shame is weakness. But a no spoken with calm certainty is sovereignty. It does not punish her, nor does it excuse, it simply asserts where you stand. And once you master that, the dynamic changes. She will still test you, because testing is part of her nature, but instead of destabilizing you, those tests become opportunities to deepen her trust in you. Power in relationships is not about domination. It is about coherence. When your inner world and your outer stance align, you are unshakable. And when you are unshakable, you no longer fear the tests, because you know the truth. She is not your enemy. She is the mirror that reveals whether you have mastered yourself. Strength without direction is destruction. Too many men confuse masculinity with hardness, aggression, or emotional detachment. They believe that to be respected, they must be feared. That to be valued, they must dominate. That to be safe, they must never show care. But this distortion of strength does not create power, it creates violence. Violence not only against others, but against the man himself. His own mind becomes his battlefield. His own body, the victim of unexpressed rage. His own relationships, the ruins left behind, at its root. Corrupted masculinity is not strength at all. It is fear wearing armor. It is the unresolved boy inside the man, still terrified of being overlooked, abandoned, or humiliated. Unable to face that fear, he overcompensates with force. But force without clarity is chaos. The man who screams to be heard is rarely listened to. The man who controls every detail is usually out of control inside. The man who demands respect seldom earns it. Psychology teaches us that aggression is often the mask of helplessness. When a man lacks internal direction, his nervous system defaults to fight mode. He lashes out, not because he is powerful, but because he is lost. Neuroscience shows that chronic anger floods the body with stress hormones, weakening memory, clouding judgment, and eroding the very stability a man seeks to project. The result is a cycle of failed control. The more he tries to dominate, the less he masters himself. True masculinity is not measured in how much you can crush, but in how much you can channel. Think of a river. Left untamed, it destroys homes and fields in its path. Directed with intention, it generates electricity, nourishes life, and sustains entire cities. Your strength is no different. Without purpose, it floods and ruins. With purpose, it creates and sustains. This is why men who direct their energy into building, whether families, businesses, or communities, carry an aura that others cannot ignore. Their strength no longer feels dangerous. It feels dependable. Discipline is the bridge between raw force and true power. Discipline turns impulse into precision. It teaches a man that his body is not a weapon to unleash, but a vessel to command. It trains the mind to endure discomfort without exploding, to carry responsibility without breaking, to channel passion without losing balance. A disciplined man may still feel anger, desire, or pride, but he holds them like reins, not like chains. And that mastery is what women trust, what other men respect, and what society desperately needs. Strength with direction becomes creation. It builds futures instead of burning bridges. It protects without smothering. It leads without enslaving. And above all, it gives a man peace with himself. Because the greatest tragedy is not when others fear you, but when you live in fear of yourself. And the greatest triumph is not when others bow to you, but when you no longer bow to the chaos. Inside, every man has compared himself to others. You see the taller man, the wealthier man, the louder man, the one with sharper features or greater status, and a voice inside whispers that you are not enough. You try to compensate. You buy clothes, cars, or experiences you cannot afford. You practice lines that do not feel natural. You watch as she laughs at someone else's joke, and you wonder why she does not respond the same way to you. In those moments, you are convinced that masculinity is a contest of appearances, and you are losing. But appearance is surface. Presence is depth. Presence is what remains when the noise fades, when the possessions are set aside, when the lights dim. Presence is the energy that fills a room even before you speak. It is not created by looks or money, but by the consistency of your emotional state. A man who carries turbulence within will project it outward, no matter how polished his exterior. A man who carries stability within becomes a gravitational force, regardless of what he wears or owns. Women do not fall in love with appearance alone. They are drawn to the invisible signals of safety, strength, and vitality. Neuroscience shows that subtle cues, eye contact, breathing rhythm, tone of voice, communicate more about a man's value than any display of wealth. These signals cannot be faked because they emerge from the nervous system. If you are anxious, your breath betrays you. If you are desperate, your eyes reveal it. If you are centered, your entire presence radiates it. This is why the man who is calm under pressure, who remains composed when others panic, becomes unforgettable. He is the tree that stands firm during the storm. He does not need to shout his value, because it speaks through his silence. His steadiness reassures her in ways she cannot even articulate. She may say you are different, but what she really feels is that your presence anchors her own chaos. And that anchoring is irresistible. To become whole, you must stop chasing validation through appearance and start embodying stability through presence. This requires discipline, but also stift. You must train your nervous system to remain steady when tested, to remain patient when ignored, to remain clear when tempted. This is not about pretending you do not care, it is about caring without losing balance. When you master this, you carry yourself not as a man begging for recognition, but as a man who already recognizes himself. The whole man is not the most handsome, the richest, or the most dominant. He is the man who no longer needs comparison, because his presence alone defines the space he occupies. And when you reach that point, appearance becomes irrelevant. You will realize that the power you chased outside was always hidden within you, waiting to be claimed. Masculinity today is not about reviving old roles or clinging to outdated archetypes. It is about rediscovering a center that cannot be broken by external noise. You have seen how silence can become a prison, how desire can turn into invisibility, how power can be tested in the shadows, how strength without direction becomes destruction, and how presence outweighs every superficial appearance. Each of these fragments forms the mosaic of what it means to be a man in this century, not a conqueror of others, but a master of himself. The renewal of masculinity is not loud. It does not announce itself in slogans or declarations. It is quiet, steady, and undeniable. It is the man who knows when to speak and when to remain silent, who no longer begs to be desired because he already embodies desire, who passes through every test with coherence, who channels his force into creation, and who fills a room with presence without uttering a word. That is the man who is never ignored. That is the man who does not need to kneel, yet does not fear to love. You are not called to perfection. You are called to integrity. The men who will shape the future are not those who perform masculinity, but those who live it. They will not be measured by appearances, but by the consistency of their presence. They will not dominate through fear, but lead through gravity. They will not shatter under rejection, because they no longer depend on validation. They will walk forward, not to prove their worth, but because their worth is already proven. To be a man today is to embrace that quiet power, to rebuild the mirror with sharper edges, to carry silence not as weakness, but as gravity, to wield strength not as violence, but as purpose. It is to stand in a world that questions you and answer not with words, but with a life so coherent that no test can undo it. The masculine renewal begins not in society, not in women, not in the approval of others, but in you. If this cut deep, don't just sit with it. Pick one tool from the description, a book or a guide, and apply one idea from it every day for 7 days. Write down 2 lines each night about what changed. That's your proof. Then, tap the next episode on your screen and stack the second layer. Subscribe now so you don't miss a step, and send this to one man you respect. The tools are below. Start tonight.